Okay, we do not have a quorum. We're going to start as a basically subcommittee. We do not have a quorum yet. We're going to move to item 9. Mr. Ashajian is present. You may come forward at this time, sir. And of course, this is Wednesday, April 13th, GO Committee, room 437. And I'd like to welcome also Mr. Berryhill. And Mr. Vallado is also going to be present today, sitting in. He is not present yet, but we want to recognize him as well. Sir, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. I'm pleased to present AB 1030, a bill that would grant the Board of Equalization the ability to seize and sell tobacco.
This is recommended do pass by the chair. Is there a motion? There's a motion. Is there a second? Is there any person in favor, or is there a witness present, Mr. Shajian?
Mr. Loper is here.
Please, Mr. Loper.
Dennis Loper with the California Distributors Association. The analysis is very accurate, so I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Very good. Any person, witness in support, any opposition? Seeing and hearing none. Before we do that, let's establish a quorum. Do we have a quorum yet? Not yet?
Yes, we do.
We do. Let's establish a quorum very quickly. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, present.
Ms. Sandy.
Here.
Atkins. Block.
Here.
Bloomingfield. Chesbro.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Galgiani. Valadeo. Gatto.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Berryhill.
Here.
Ma.
Here.
Perea. Perez. Silva. Torres. We have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Any comments from the members? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Ashajian, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. AB 1030 corrects a deficiency in current law and will empower the Board of Equalization to seize and sell the
You may close. Is this your close?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Of licensed distributors who illegally distribute untaxed tobacco products. Thank you for your consideration. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Very well. Thank you. Is there a motion? We had a motion second. Secretary, call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Hall, aye. Nastandi. Nastandi, aye. Atkins. Atkins, aye. Block. Block, aye. Bloomingfield. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, aye. Galgiani. Valadeo. Gatto. Gatto, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Berryhill. Berryhill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Perea. Perea, aye. Perez. Silva. Silva, aye. Torres. Torres, aye.
Okay, congratulations, sir. The bill's out.
Thank you.
Very well.
We'll sit on consent.
Thank you, sir. We'll move. We'll move the consent. Is there a motion? Moved. Mr. Second for the consent. Call the roll. This is on the consent calendar.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Nastandi. Nastandi, aye. Atkins. Atkins, aye. Block. Block, aye. Bloomingfield. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, aye. Galgiani. Valadeo. Gatto. Gatto, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Berryhill. Berryhill, aye. Ma. Ma, aye. Perea. Perea, aye. Perez. Silva. Torres. Torres, aye. Silva, aye.
Okay, consent calendar is adopted. Okay, we'll hear item 1AB 183 by Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms. Ma, and just for a little housekeeping, we'll have two witnesses in support, two witnesses in opposition at the hearing the bill. Okay, you may continue. You may go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 183 seeks to seeks to better regulate self-checkout alcohol sales from grocery stores. Underage drinking cost Californians an estimated $8.1 billion annually. In 2007, underage drinkers consumed nearly 14% of all alcohol sold, totaling $3.6 billion in sales. I'm going to have my witnesses maybe speak, and then I will close with anything that they haven't said. How's
Very
that?
well. What do we have?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Baumer representing the California Professional Firefighters. Pleased to be in support of this bill as we supported it last year. We are a primary provider of EMS services, and communities we respond far too frequently to underage drinking, car crashes, and so are pleased to be in support of this measure.
Very well, thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is John Hughes. I'm the CEO of Metro United Methodist Urban Ministry in San Diego. We support this. A couple of years ago, we saw a major increase in the number of alcohol-related crashes, and we commissioned a study through San Diego State University. They did a survey of 216 outlets in 5 counties, and we were quite shocked at the results. When we looked a little deeper, we took it to our youth council, and they went around to 29 different outlets that had self-serve checkouts, and they found out that they could beat the system 69% of the time. What they would do is they would get a 12-pack of soda, for example, and they would scan the soda and bag the beer. When they did intentionally go in and scan the alcohol, in about 7% of the time the machine failed to register that. They also found that they could override the system about 10% of the time by scanning another item. And when they were often flagged by the employees, they failed to ask for ID about 10% of the time. And in about 69% of the time, they found out that they could have walked out of the store easily without being detected. They could have stolen the alcohol. So we ask your support on this.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Let me hear the witnesses, and then we'll
Well,
bring it back.
I'll come back to you because I'm very specific to those
Next
comments I wanna
witness.
ask you.
My name is Gary McDonald. I'm the State Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving California. MAD California joins those today that have a common goal in protecting our youth, our families, and ensure the safety of our communities. MAD's mission is to stop drunk driving, support the victims of this violent crime, and to prevent underage drinking. We believe that the research clearly indicates that self-checkout machines cannot guarantee that alcohol is sold safely and only to those of legal age. We believe alcohol should be given the same consideration as tobacco products or even some over-the-counter cold medicines. Requiring alcohol to be purchased from a responsible adult who will check appropriate ID is not unreasonable and should not be regarded as an inconvenience. Rather, it should be considered a reasonable protection of our youth and our communities. Here are some vitally important statistics on the relationship between teens and alcohol. 1 in 3 8th graders has tried alcohol. More than half of all 10th graders drink alcohol. 1 in 5 teens binge drink, yet only 1 in 100 parents believe that his or her teenager binge drinks. High school students who use alcohol or other substances are 5 times more likely to drop out of school or believe grades are not important. Kids who start drinking young are 7 times more likely to be in an alcohol-related crash. Teen alcohol use kills about 6,000 people each year, more than all illegal drugs combined. Car crashes are the leading cause of death for teens, and are about 1/3 of those are alcohol-related. Economically speaking, we understand that there are financial incentives for the businesses to utilize self-checkout technology. We also understand that this trend is growing. But as this trend grows, more and more of our tech-savvy youth will scan the self-checkout system, meaning more and more teens will be drinking and driving. What value, economically speaking, can you place on the lives of our youth? Obviously, they are invaluable. We all have families, whether they're parents, children, cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, or our grandchildren. We also have friends that are near and dear to us. Imagine now for a moment, if you would, indulge me for a second, imagine a moment that one of your loved ones has been needlessly killed by a teen that drove drunk and crashed into your family car. Every day in America, another 30 people die as a result of drunk driving crashes. Together, we can decrease this number. MAD supports AB 183, and we emphatically urge the passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness, state your name and your position.
My name is Tommy Doyle. I do a number of things. I'm a motivational speaker working in conjunction with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor for teens, and I also work at the Safety Center teaching defensive driving classes and teen drug and alcohol education. In my experience as a drug and alcohol counselor, and also with my personal story, when I was 18 in 2004, I was a drunk driver. I crashed and I killed my best friend drinking and driving. That night I used a fake ID, but any other night I would have used the same technique that's been described. It's very simple. You walk to the store, you get a 12-pack of soda, you scan that, and then you put the alcohol on board, and very often nobody pays you any amount of time. They don't care because the machine didn't go off. If it would have been any other night, I might have used this technique instead of a fake ID, and I lost my best friend because of that. As a drug and alcohol counselor, I deal with kids every day, and this is a very common technique that they describe to me, that they use it all the time, whether they try to trick the system using the technique that was described here, or they just steal the alcohol. Either way, when you don't have checkers who are actively watching who's buying and purchasing the items from the store, it's a lot easier to rip the system off, so to speak. So I'm in support of this bill, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon, members of the Assembly. My name is Ai-Hen Nguyen. I am a senior policy analyst with the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. Lane works on issues affecting the working poor and minority and low-income communities. And our involvement began with this when we became involved with a community group in Los Angeles that was concerned about the store that was coming to the neighborhood which wanted to use self-checkout. They were concerned because this neighborhood had a high prevalence of crime as reported by the police department and an oversaturation of alcohol outlets as reported by the state ABC. Residents were also concerned because the store was adjacent to an elementary school, and within the past year, the police had reported incidences of public drunkenness in around that corner and an incident of youth access to alcohol. So Lane, in partnership with the Community Economic Development Clinic at UCLA, conducted a survey to determine the effectiveness of unmanned check stands to prevent the illegal sales of alcohol. And the findings of our study, which similar to the one done in San Diego, suggested that indeed it was possible for an individual to purchase alcohol illegally because of understaffing of self-checkout machines, inadequate training for staff responsible for monitoring the self-checkout machines, and sometimes the technology did not always completely prevent the sale of alcohol to unauthorized persons. As said before, other items sold at grocery stores, namely tobacco items, are locked up and cannot be accessed by customers without employee assistance. We believe that the public health concerns created by inappropriate access to alcohol merit similar safeguards to ensure that it is sold safely and legally. That's why we urge you to support AB 183, which would require the alcohol purchase be conducted through a face-to-face transaction.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman and members, John Latimer on behalf of the California Retailers Association. I apologize, our letter is not in the file at this point, I guess. A number of our members use self-checkout machines. I think one point of important clarification, I assume all the members are well aware of this, but the utilization of a self-service checkout machine does not relieve the liability of the licensee in any way, shape, or form relative to an illegal sale. So number of the activities described are theft, which is also against the law. A number of the activities described are illegal sales, which if precipitated, can't say it, precipitated by youth is illegal and the youth is citable. And if, on the other hand, a transaction is made and the machine doesn't go off and the alcohol is purchased through a choice of the clerk not to check the ID, that is a violation on the store's part. So the difficulty we have with this is the technology in and of itself does not resolve any liability of the retailer. You cannot make an underage sale. Unfortunately, people do steal, but in the retail business, we're not in the business of allowing people to steal from us. So we do the best we can to control inventory because otherwise that's a losing proposition for us as well. We're also, cognizant, very cognizant of the fact that underage drinking is an issue and is a problem. It is something that many of our stores responsibly participate in. Many of our stores have policies that require the product to be locked out. Those are voluntary policies, but whether we have the policy of the transaction being locked out and a face-to-face transaction happening or not, again, it doesn't absolve the liability or responsibility of the retailer. Respectfully, this piece of legislation we do think infringes on what we have seen as some efficiencies. Our stores have both manned and unmanned check stands, but the liability and the responsibility of the retailer doesn't change in either environment. Respectfully ask for a no vote.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair and members, Crystal Jack on behalf of the California Grocers Association. We'd like to reiterate the comments of Mr. Latimer. We also believe that the technology does allow for the proper review of age-appropriate sales. We fully support the enforcement of existing laws by the ABC, and we don't believe that this bill is solving any problem because we haven't seen that a problem exists. So we would encourage your opposition to this bill.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, members, Paul Gladfelty representing NCR. We're the ones who actually manufacture these machines. For those of you or your staff who had an opportunity to actually look at the machine, which was downstairs yesterday in the Capitol, we had a variety of products. Many of those products looked identical. Some of the testimony that was made here today may have been used on old machines. That's what technology is all about. It continues to change. So the argument that you can fool the machine with a six-pack of Coke versus a six-pack of beer, technology exists. It exists with our equipment that you can't do that. The weight is different. It recognizes the weight. It recognizes the difference in shapes. It will recognize the difference in the pictures of the product itself. So there's lots of different ways that the technology which currently exists can't be fooled. And so when you say that, well, the kids can come in and fool the system, there are ways that exist today. So if you wanted to look at legislation to set standards, for example, that said every machine has to have a weight standard, or every machine shall look at similarly shaped products, which our machine can be set to do. So if you had a six-pack bottles of root beer versus a six-pack of anything else, that would require an assistant to look at that purchase to ensure that that purchase was not alcohol. What happens in any transaction, for any of you who have used these machines, which I'm sure most of you have at some point, since they exist in many different stores, what happens is that you will scan the alcohol purchase. That alcohol purchase will result in, before you finalize the purchase, a assistant has to come out. They have to do two things. They have to verify age, and they have to verify sobriety. And that can be done 2 feet away. It can be done 6 feet away. I happen to be looking at Mr. Chesbrough here. We all know that he does not look 21. Mr. Silva, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're not going to add that I'm also sober.
In any event, it's easy to verify your age from a distance. It's easy to verify my age from a distance. Somebody who's in the 30-year-old age group, okay, you're gonna look at that individual. You're gonna check their ID. Okay, this is not a technology problem. It's really not. It's really just a question if the legislature wanted to do something in this area, which is a fertile area of debate and discussion, is maybe you set some standards. Maybe they're personnel standards. Maybe they're standards on what the equipment should be equipped with. But the fact of the matter is the technology exists that you can't fool the system. I've tried it. I tried it yesterday in many different iterations, trying to hide the six-pack, put it over here. It's going to tell you that it's a different item. It stops the machine. It requires a clerk assistant.
Mr. Gladfelter, we're going to have to move to the next one. Okay. We have questions from Mr. Chesbro, Hill, then Torres. Mr. Chesbro.
The questions I had for a specific individual, I think, actually have been answered. But if you don't mind me making a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Very well.
I'm probably going to vote for this bill. I'm pretty sure I voted for it last year. But I think that the problem that's been defined, which is a very serious one, will be only marginally affected by this bill. Because, first of all, the two activities the gentleman pointed out are already illegal. That's what I was going to ask him. One is essentially shoplifting alcohol, and secondly, not checking the ID if the person who works there is not. But they could do that just as easily at the check stand, and ABC and local law enforcement are involved in trying to control that every day of the week, and it's a serious law enforcement problem. And finally, I'm not sure if it's the law, but every store I've ever been in where I've bought alcohol at this type of equipment, as Mr. Gladfeltes pointed out, it's essentially stopped me until somebody could come over or look at me and verify that I'm sober and of age. So I think it's a noble attempt. I just am not sure it'll probably mostly just create more inconvenience for people. But if it has a marginal benefit, I'll vote for it. But I just think it's somewhat of an exaggeration in terms of how much it's going to address the very serious problem.
Very well. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bond, I don't know the witness who was up earlier. I had a question for him, and I think along Mr. Chesbro's lines, I voted for this last year, and I'll probably vote for it again this year. But what I'm trying to understand is if there is a distinction between the full-serve checkout and the partial or limited checkout in terms of checking someone's ID. It sounds like, at least from what I'm hearing, that an ID is checked if a person does come through and is not of age, or if there's a problem and they're trying to purchase alcohol, they do get their other ID checked or not. So I guess is there a difference between the full service and the limited checkout in terms of a person being stopped, checked, and looked at?
Well, Mr. Gladfelte talked about one type of technology. I'm not sure that all of the grocery stores have the same technology, but it's supposed to go off. And someone is supposed to come over and check. But I did a little survey in my office, and when someone scanned broccoli, the lockout went on. I had another person who bought alcohol. The light came on. He kind of waited, continued to check. Nobody came by, and he left the store. And then another one bought alcohol, and someone remotely just, undid the lockout. So I don't know. Everyone has a different method of checking the ID. And if you have 12 grocery stands and nobody's even watching, I mean, maybe they're not even scanning, and I know it's illegal, but it's very easy to just, not scan it and put it in a bag and just walk out with it. So what we're saying is it's better to be safe than sorry. If you're going to buy alcohol, just like other controlled substances like cigarettes or pseudoephedrine, just go see a retailer so that they can check your ID.
And you mentioned a point about, and someone can walk out around the thing without getting it scanned.
Well, nobody's
or is
watching.
there something at the door that would, the little security marker or something that alarms will go off when you walk out the door with the product, since it did not get scanned and disconnect something? Is it?
Assemblyman Hill, John Latimer from the California Retailers Association again.
You are recognized, sir.
Thank you. The first question that you asked, I want to clarify. The ABC would tell you it is not a matter of law that an ID is checked in every alcohol purchase or serving. It is ultimately the responsibility, whether that is a transaction in an on-sale premise, a bar or restaurant, or in a retail off-sale setting, with the use of a machine or without a use of a machine, is ultimately the discretion of the retailer. However, in every circumstance, the responsibility of the retailer to get it right always exists. If the choice is made not to ask for ID and a transaction goes through and a minor purchases, that's a violation, and the retail licensee is affected by it. So the circumstances, there is no distinction in terms of the law and the treatment of asking for ID. In terms of the question about whether or not there's some kind of an RFID warning device. There is increasingly in a number of alcohol products, there are caps or containers. You may have seen kind of a black lid that's put on. Those do contain often audible warning devices if they go out of the store. It's not on every alcoholic beverage product, it's true. It's on many of them now. But that's, again, a choice on a case-by-case basis because, again, as retailers, we are not interested in people stealing from us. It's a bad business proposition to allow people to steal from us.
And one final question, Mr. Chair,
Certainly,
if
sir.
I could.
Yes.
Last year, and I remember, and I don't remember the answer, the ABC, the question came up of, has this been a problem? Has the ABC sanctioned, taken license away, or found violations in stores? And I know the question came up last year, and I don't remember what the answer was then, and if it's the same answer. And do we have anyone from ABC here that could answer that question? You said it wasn't a problem last year? They haven't found? Okay.
Well, I think there is a bill to increase
There was,
the...
just for the record, I don't know if you heard, I checked, and from my understanding, there hasn't been a problem of reportings through ABC with this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think there is a bill to increase the number of ABC investigators because they don't have enough people. I don't think the ABC has been doing stings. I know they've been doing other types of undercover investigations in front of different type of liquor stores. But based on the surveys that these, my witnesses talked about, it is able to get around these checkout stands. People are able to take out to either steal or to purchase alcohol without going through the proper checks and having someone
I guess the answer is
ID.
Technology, the type of technology that's used. Some of it sounds like there is it available, but some places don't have that specific, either sensitive or sophisticated enough technology to make it work. So thank you, Ms. Mo.
Ms. Torres.
My concern is really that we are solely relying on technology to babysit who buys alcohol and who doesn't. I don't buy a whole lot of alcohol, so my experience is only with the electronic barcode. I recently purchased a plastic chip bowl that rang up at $999. I recently
Are you sure it was plastic?
That's what my husband said. Wow, what kind of material is this? And are there diamonds in the middle? I recently went to a store here locally in Sacramento, and I went through and purchased a small bottle of detergent and a bottle of water. Rang up to $16 and change. As I'm walking out, I realized that I had paid much too much for my purchases. Proceeded to the manager's counter, who argued with me that he was depending on technology, and therefore maybe I had taken a bag to my car already, because there's no way that technology could fail. So I'm here to say that technology has failed me in many ways, and I don't think that I can take a chance with technology failing another child, and to allow a drunk driver, an immature 16-year-old to purchase alcohol. And for that reason only, I cannot support it. I will be voting on this bill.
Mr. Perea.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, prior to this, I did a little bit of homework myself and went through a couple self-checkout stands in Fresno. And not that I'm going to dime anybody out, but I did go through one and bought a 12-pack, and they were great. Came, checked my ID, everything worked out just fine. Got locked out, everything worked. Then I went through another one, and it didn't work. Kind of just did my thing, bought my beer, and walked on out without anybody. There was no lockout. Just walked right on out. So because of that, I'm going to be supporting the bill. But I would say, though, that if I felt that there was if I felt like if my experience was different, if I would have got locked out both times, I probably would be voting against the bill because I feel more comfortable that the technology is uniform across all supermarkets, but that just wasn't my experience. And so because of that, I'll be voting in support of this bill today. So thank you.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to respond to Mr. Latimer's comment that you're not in business to lose money and have things stolen. I do understand that, and that's persuasive. But in fact, if you have these machines instead of 3 or 4 or 5 checkers, you're probably saving $50 to $100 in salary every hour. So if you have $5 or $10 or $20 worth of merchandise, alcohol taken, you're still gaining money. So I do understand there is a financial incentive for the stores to have this technology, regardless of whether people are occasionally shoplifting alcohol.
Mr. Block, again, I understand the mathematics attached to that. I certainly, for my chain grocery stores, I've never heard that calculation made. Again, we do think that the technology works. We do have people on site, but even in Mr. Perea's example, you don't have to be carded every time you go through a check stand with a clerk. Right? I mean, ultimately, the responsibility of Mr. Perea, who does look maybe like he should be carded, not Mr. Chesbro, but maybe Mr. Perea looks like he should be carded. I know. Sorry, Wes. Again, if there's a mistake made there, that's a violation. I mean, part of the struggle that we're having here is the responsibility of the retailer exists, and I'm sorry for Ms. Torres' unfortunate retail experience. But we're not even saying that technology is infallible. But if we're wrong, there's already a penalty. And if the issue that Mr. Perea described, if it was uniform, I think that's what Mr. Gladfelty was touching on. There's a way to require a standard operating procedure legislatively, something we suggested last year, which is that every transaction has to be locked out, unlocked by a clerk. And then the transaction can go forward. But recognize at the point of unlocking that transaction, it's still a judgment of the clerk whether or not to card Mr. Chesbro or Mr. Perea. They just better be right.
For the record, I want to say the last time I got asked for an ID was to make sure I was eligible for the senior discount.
Duly noted.
Everybody's talking about my age.
Duly noted, sir. Mr. Berryhill.
What is the penalty for a store selling alcohol to a minor?
Two things happen. One, there's a monetary fine. And the second thing is they risk suspension of their license. There's a 3-strike, 3 sales policy that the ABC keeps track of. And if a person violates 3 times, they lose their liquor license, which for all of my chain grocery stores, it's pretty much a deal killer.
Yeah, that would be a pretty major blow. So 3 times and
along the way, there's gradations of penalty as well.
Okay, any other questions from the members? All right. I had an opportunity to check out a demonstration on the self-checkout, and though I'm not thoroughly convinced that it's as easy as it sounds to for a person to trick the system, I'm going to support the bill. I believe that any safeguard we can put in place to protect kids is where we want to be. I'm not thoroughly convinced, however, that this alone will stop theft from occurring in the stores, nor am I thoroughly convinced that this alone will stop a person from a teenager from trying to go in the store to get liquor. My question then, if that's the case, well, then perhaps maybe we should require all stores, liquor stores, etc., to have certain safeguards and perimeters in place to prevent theft. You can't do that. Why? Because you cannot stop a person from going to the store, running out of the store with liquor, whether it's a self-check, whether it's the typical cash register. You just can't do it. So I don't know if this alone is going to accomplish what the bill's intent is on its face. So. But I'm going to go ahead and support the bill and get it out because I think it's important that we continue to try to establish parameters. But I'm not thoroughly, with all due respect, I'm not thoroughly convinced that this is going to do exactly what we want it to do. So I just wanted the author to know I'm going to give a courtesy vote out. I'm not thoroughly convinced that this bill is going to do what you want it to do. I'm going to give a courtesy vote to get it out or to support you on this, on your efforts. If a kid at 16 want to drink, they're going to drink. If they're at 17, they're going to drink. You can go in the store, take a 6-pack out and run out. I don't think if you're planning to steal some beer or a bottle, I don't think you're going to try to steal it at the check stand. I think you're going to steal it and run. I don't think you're going to take the chance to see if you can trick a system. I think your intent is to get out. I'm a cop. I know. You don't want to wait in line while you're stealing. You want to get out of there. So I don't know if this is. I don't know if this is going to do what you want it to do. So, but I'm going to go ahead and support the bill. And with that, I'll have the yes, Ms. Atkins.
You know, I didn't need to say anything, but I couldn't agree more with your comments, actually. So, in every way, shape, or form. So, I'm supportive, but I thank you.
Yeah. Is there a motion? It's moved. Is there a second? It's moved, properly second. Secretary, call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Ms. Standy? Ms. Standy, no. Atkins? Aye. Atkins, aye. Block? Aye. Block, aye. Blumenfield? Aye. Blumenfield, aye. Chesbro? Aye. Chesbro, aye. Cook? Galgiani? Valadeo? No. Valadeo, no. Gatto? Aye. Gatto, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Berryhill? Ma?
Aye.
Ma, aye. Perea? Perea, aye. Perez? Silva? Silva, no. Torres? Yes. Torres, aye. The bill's out.
Okay, congratulations. That bill's out. We'll go to item 6, AB 742, Nastandi. Mr. Nastandi, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, AB 742, this measures in response to the Bureau of State Audit's report from February of this year and addresses several...
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and second. You have any witnesses in support?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair.
Is there any? Are you in support or opposition?
I am not neatly in the category.
You're just going to speak.
Friendly neutrality.
Very well.
How about that?
I like it. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Pilar Oñate Quintana with KP Public Affairs here on behalf of the Barona Band of Mission Indians. And the purpose for my comments, and I will make them quick, is that Barona is one of the 21 tribes that continues to pay into the Special Distribution Fund. So we have a very vital, very ongoing interest in all things pertaining to the Special Distribution Fund. We take no issue with respect to the specific language of your measure as it exists right now, but we'll be watching it very closely should it change in any way, shape, or form. Barona is proud to have a very transparent process when it comes to local mitigation allocations, so we're happy on that front. Just a couple of quick notes, given that the analysis brings up a couple of issues with respect to the Special Distribution Fund and its sustainability. First off, the analysis notes the historical level of statewide allocations as being at $30 million, which would run down the fund pretty quickly. In all reality, forthcoming appropriations should be proportionately less, given that fewer tribes pay into the fund at this point. And then secondly, on the note of sustainability, and this pertains to local mitigation monies coming forward and this revised process being used, I would just like to make the point that the sustainability of the fund is heavily impacted by the fact that the Special Distribution Fund currently picks up all of the cost for the state's tribal gaming oversight. So that means California Gaming Control Commission, Department of Justice, alcohol and drug program monies. So that is an inequitable situation that we're not asking to be addressed in this bill, but we will be coming back in the future so that equity can be restored in this situation.
Very well.
Thank you for for allowing the time.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Any opposition? Seeing and hearing none, any discussion from the members? Seeing none, there was a motion, there's a second. Call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Hall, aye. Nastandi?
Aye.
Nastandi, aye. Atkins? Aye. Atkins, aye. Block?
Aye.
Block, aye. Blumenfield?
Aye.
Blumenfield, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. Cook? Galgiani? Valadeo? Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Berryhill?
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Ma?
Aye.
Ma, aye. Perea?
Aye.
Perea, aye. Perez? Silva? Silva, aye. Torres? Torres, aye.
Congratulations, that bill's out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. We'll call item 7, AB 795, Mr. Block.
to make sure I was saying it right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. AB 795 basically corrects an omission in existing law. Existing law prohibits smoking of tobacco products within 20 feet of a main exit, entrance, or operable window of public buildings, including public universities and colleges. And yet, in my long experience at universities and colleges, I frequently have to enter buildings or exit buildings through a cloud of smoke. Surgeon General has made it clear that secondhand smoke is deadly, contains over 50 known carcinogens. Why, if we have the rules already in law that you can't smoke within 20 feet of a public building, why are students and faculty doing it? Well, the reason, unfortunately, is there's no enforcement mechanism in the earlier law. What AB 795 does is it gives the authority to any community colleges, universities, public universities, CSU or UC, the right to cite and collect revenue in order to enforce existing law. Measure will also prohibit the sale of tobacco on college campuses, which is an issue that actually affects only a small number of colleges that still in this day and age sell tobacco products.
Bill's been moved. Been second.
And I have witnesses here with me to speak on the bill, a long list of support.
Very well.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kimberly White-Brichet with the American Lung Association, California. We are a sponsor, supporter of this bill. We believe that this is a technical fix. We also know that most colleges and universities do not sell tobacco products. They are institutions of higher learning. Kids ages 18 to 24 are targeted every day by the tobacco industry. The least we could do is take the tobacco products off campus. So we ask for an aye vote. We also have made available to you a technical witness today. This is Kim Homer-Vagadori, who has worked on college campuses for the last 10 years on a host of tobacco issues and is available for any technical questions you may have.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, Brendan Tuig on behalf of the American Heart Association in support.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Chair and members. Mark McDonald, McCallum Group, on behalf of a number of local community college districts, Peralta, Glendale, and Los Rios. We're actually support if amended, but we do thank the author for bringing this bill forward. Enforcing non-smoking policies on our campuses is next to impossible because we don't have a fine authority. And so this bill would provide us that. And it's not only for students, but it's also for members of the community who may be passing through the college or working on the college that we need this authority in order to enforce our non-smoking policies. We look forward to working with the author, and again, thank him for introducing this and urge your support here, moving the bill forward. Thank you.
Any other witnesses? Any opposition? Any questions from the members? Yes. Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I very much like the bill and the approach. My one concern, and I think we've talked about that you'd be willing to address this, is when we have an enforcement fee, often in other arenas there's a cap on that fee, because otherwise you can get into a nasty situation where someone who maybe has other agendas starts just increasing it indiscriminately. Would you be willing to add a cap as this moves forward?
Yeah, absolutely. As we've discussed, I think it is reasonable to have a cap. We haven't determined what that level should be yet, but I can assure you we will work with your office, with this committee, to come to a reasonable cap.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Gatto.
So thank you, Mr. Block. I certainly agree with some of the aspects of this bill, and some of its components make sense, but some of the other ones I'm sort of left scratching my head, and I wanted to make sure I understood it to the best of my ability. So, I don't mean to reduce this to an absurd degree by any stretch of the imagination, but it sounds like we're mandating something that the schools could mandate themselves, and then we get the bill for it. Is that because that's right here in the bill, in the bill analysis, and I'm just curious about that.
Sure. You're talking specifically about prohibiting tobacco products on college campuses. We know that most have not, but we think it's good public health policy and that this just codifies across all three systems and creates a standard and a norm, and we believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, Mr. Gott, I'm not sure if you're talking about that aspect of the bill or the aspect of fines being able to attach to things that are already prohibited by campuses.
No, I have no problem with a campus charging a fine if somebody breaks a campus rule or violates an infraction, but it just strikes me like, assuming this is good policy, that the UC regents and everybody at the community colleges and the Cal State system could adopt these policies, particularly on a campus-by-campus basis, and then they could enforce them, and we would not be imposing a mandate on the system ourselves that would require us to. I mean, it says right here it requires the state to reimburse them for things that we mandate.
So the way that this currently works right now, my name is Kim Homer-Vagadori. I'm the director of the California Youth Advocacy Network, and we work statewide with all the public colleges and universities working on tobacco policies. What's going on right now is they have policies. We have 57% of public institutions with policies much stronger than state law, and they've done everything that they can think of to get people to comply and pretty much have people who will stand in front of a police officer and smoke and say, there's nothing you can do, and the police officer say, you are correct. I can't do anything but refer you to human resources or student affairs. So what this will do is it will give the colleges the option, if they so choose, to issue citations the same way they do with if somebody's skateboarding across campus, riding a bicycle. The fine would be whatever amount they would choose unless there is a cap on it. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may speak to this, because I think now I get the question. It does say in here that if there are state mandates that are determined to cost money, they will be reimbursed by the state. In fact, Mr. Gatto, the regulations, the prohibitions already exist in law. This just gives the campuses an enforcement mechanism of citing and fining. So rather than costing the campuses money that would need to be reimbursed, this will actually make money for the campuses. Not that it should be a money-making tool, but the effect of it will be there will be more money in the campuses, which will be used for smoking cessation and other kinds of health classes.
But, even though we're mandating that they have to post signs and do certain things, and like you noted, the bill has several different components. So we're imposing these certain mandates, including the sign posting and printing mandate. Wouldn't that cost, especially if some of the campuses don't initially have the resources to enforce this? I mean, the campus police, like you said, and some other people have said, I mean, they're busy enforcing other things, like skateboarding and some other things on campus that are.
I think it's an issue of how we're interpreting the bill. So we don't see this as a mandate in any way in terms of what campuses choose to enforce. It's really just putting that enforcement language into the code. So if they are motivated to enforce a policy, and as we know, there are already signs all over college campuses, so there's no mandate to post additional signs. That wasn't part of AB 846. What we say is when they collect that revenue, it's at the discretion of every single college and university to decide how to use that revenue, and we make a recommendation. It can be included but not limited to cessation, because we want to see students and faculty get the service that they need if they so choose to quit, or we could say it could go to additional signage. If there is signs on campus, and most campuses already have smoking, non-smoking signs, whatever their local policies may be, we know that signs become self-enforcing. So again, there's no mandate in this bill.
It's possible that I have an out-of-date analysis, because it says right here, this bill provides that all campuses shall post signs stating their tobacco use policy. And then in the bill itself, it says that this would impose a mandate and duties on the school districts that would result in the state having to pay back the school districts for those mandates. So.
And with regard to the signage, the majority of campuses have signage, and what we encourage before they ever get to the punitive aspect of enforcement, that they do signage. Usually what happens is we encourage the signage. We work with our campus beautification policies to do signage, to increase compliance, do educational campaigns, do a lot of outreach. If none of that's working, then to go to the citation side. San Francisco State for 6 years had a policy. They did extensive signage and an enormous amount of education. It was not working, and they started to do citations, and that's what's been effective. At Santa Rosa Junior College, they did the same. They had little compliance. They posted signage about fines for a city ordinance, and they've had not one violator since those signs have been changed. So that's where signage comes into play.
Mrs. Torres.
I'm just going to support the comments that were already made by my colleague here. I just don't understand. I can see the issue where previously I have experience in private gated communities. They may not be able to enforce public laws in those communities because the local police department has not had the authority to come from the gated community to cite inside their gates, right? But this is a public institution. I don't understand if this is an issue of trying to divert monies that the colleges collect for a program that you and us very much support. That's one thing, but to specifically call out regulations that are already on the books, I don't understand. I just don't get that.
I'd like Mark McDonald, McCallum Group. We represent a number of local community college districts, and thank you, Assemblyman Gatto. The issue you brought up was our issue, specifically on the mandate portion of it. But to answer your question, Assemblywoman, a lot of districts do have policies that go beyond what the local jurisdiction regulates. And the issue for the community colleges is that they cannot enforce those. They don't have the authority to fine. They can issue a disciplinary citation to students, but that doesn't work. To be quite honest, it doesn't work very well with the students, and then there's no funding for enforcement. Also for, as I mentioned earlier, for members of the community that may be on campus for different issues, whether it's there's a building program going on, whether it's a guest speaker or whatever member of the community might be on the campus that violates the smoking policy. There's no enforcement that the college can take for that violation. If you're going to cite, then you do have to have signage. You can't cite or fine students or members of the community without the signage. And the intent behind the bill is to give, in my discussions with the author's office, is to give the colleges a way to not only enforce their smoking policies, but also to fund the enforcement of those policies. We'd like to continue working with the author on exactly the issue that you brought up, Assemblyman, as we move forward.
Okay, Mr. Pereira, I'm sorry.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So public universities have the authority to enforce. Is this just another mechanism in order to allow?
No,
I don't get it.
It's crazy. The initial law gives them the authority to prohibit smoking within 20 feet, but doesn't give them the authority to enforce.
Mr. Block, would you like to take some time to work the logistics of this bill out and bring it back to the committee?
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an opportunity to do that.
Oh, the bill's been double referred.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you take some time and work this out, okay, and then bring it back. I'll give you an opportunity to bring it back to the committee.
Can I just make one suggestion?
Yes.
I just really want to support Assemblymember Blumenfield on the cap idea.
Yeah,
these need to be capped.
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure that, because I can let this bill go today, but I don't think it would be advantageous to you.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an opportunity to ask the chair to bring it back.
Appreciate that.
Okay, let's do that. Okay.
Mr. Chair, whichever bill you'd like to present first.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, members, AB 241 extends the moratorium on the issuance of new gambling license for car rooms to January 1st, 2020. The extension will provide local governments with a reliable source of revenue necessary to plan.
Move the bill.
Thank you.
Second. There's been a motion and a second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Witnesses in favor?
Mr. Chairman and members, Rob Ross, California Gaming Association, in support.
Mr. Members, good afternoon. Pedro Aceituno from the City of Bell Gardens and also on the California Cities for Self-Reliance in support of this bill.
Victor Farfan, City of Hawaiian Gardens, also in support of this bill.
Anthony Gonzalez, representing the City of Hawaiian Gardens and also the City of Commerce in support. Thank you.
Any testimony in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, who's the motion from? Mr. Gatto, a motion to bill, second from Mr. Valdeo. Mr. Chairman, would you like to close?
Yes, I respectfully recommend your support and I vote.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Hall, I. Nastandi.
Aye.
Nastandi, I. Atkins. Atkins, I. Block. Block, I. Blumenfield. Blumenfield, I. Chesbro. Chesbro, I. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, I. Galgiani. Valadeo. Valadeo, I. Gatto. Gatto, I. Hill. Hill, I. Berryhill. Berryhill, I. Ma. Ma, I. Perea. Perea, I. Perez. Silva. Torres. Torres, I.
Mr. Chairman, your bill's out.
Thank you, members. AB 513, sir.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair and members, AB 513 would allow gambling establishments who offer lines of credit the ability to take debtors to court. Currently, they have no authority to resolve gaming debts. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Move the bill, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Witnesses in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you. Jerome Encinas with the California Nations Indian Gaming Association and the Rincon Band of Blue Senor Indians in support, sponsors of the bill, in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor I. Nelson Rose. I'm a distinguished senior professor at Whittier Law School and a visiting professor at the University of Macau, and I'm here in support of the bill.
Mr. Chairman and members, Rod Blongy on behalf of the Commerce Club, Hollywood Park Casino, Lucky Chances, and others in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition to the bill? Seeing none. Mr. Hill had a motion, I believe. A second was from Mr. Gatto was second. Mr. Chair, would you like to close?
Thank you. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Please call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Nastandi.
Aye.
Nastandi, I. Atkins. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Atkins, I. Block. Block, I. Blumenfield. Chesbro. Chesbro, I. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, I. Galgiani. Valadeo. Valadeo, I. Gatto. Gatto, I. Hill. Hill, I. Berryhill. Berryhill, I. Ma. Ma, I. Perea. Perea, I. Perez. Silva. Torres. Torres, I. The bill's out.
Mr. Chair, the bill's out.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, AB 897 will allow a quarter horse racing association in California to import via
Move the
satellite.
bill.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. Mr. Chair,
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
witnesses in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members, Rod Blongy on behalf of Los Alamitos Race Course in strong support.
Move the bill.
There's been a motion and a second already. Any witnesses in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, there's a motion and a second. Would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Please call the roll.
Hall.
Hall, aye.
Hall, I. Nastandi.
Aye.
Nastandi, I. Atkins. Atkins, I. Block. Block, I. Blumenfield. Blumenfield, I. Chesbro. Chesbro, I. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, I. Galgiani. Valadeo. Valadeo, I. Gatto. Gatto, I. Hill. Hill, I. Berryhill. Ma. Ma, I. Perea. Perea, I. Perez. Silva. Torres. Torres, I. The bill's out.
Bill's out. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, members. You can close the meeting and keep the roll open.
All right. Meeting is closed, and keep the roll open for anybody that needs to add on to any votes.